Schönen guten Abend, herzlich willkommen bei unserem wievielten Screening? Haben wir eine Nummer? Ja, 54. ADA Director Screening, bitteschön. Die ADA ist die Austrian Directors Association, also einer der Regieverbände hier in Österreich mit den meisten Mitgliedern. Das sind FilmemacherInnen, auch StudentInnen im Filmbereich, Dokumentarfilm, Spielfilm, Imagefilm. Wir haben eine große Palette an Mitgliedern und für diese Mitglieder veranstalten wir diese Screenings und auch für die Öffentlichkeit, für interessierte Menschen, entweder am Thema oder am Film schaffen. Wir besprechen auch immer dann Details, wie, was die Herstellung betrifft oder die Filmsprache. Und genau, das ist eine unserer Schienen von der ADA. Wir machen auch Workshops rund um das Filmemachen. Das kann sein vom Drehbuchschreiben über Storyboard zu Stunt und was auch immer es alles noch gibt. Genau, und werden wir auch bald wieder starten. Der nächste Workshop wird wahrscheinlich zum Thema Aufstellung sein, Drehbuchaufstellung und auch Teamaufstellungen. Also das wird sicher spannend im Mai, Juni. Ja, und wir vertreten auch natürlich die Interessen von RegisseurInnen und Regisseuren in Österreich in verschiedenen Gremien und machen das sehr gerne und mit viel Herz. Und heute darf ich begrüßen für den Film Facetten der Wahrheit den Regisseur BOŠTJAN. Kannst du mir im Nachnamen helfen? Okay. Danke. Und den Produzenten, BOŠTJAN ist auch Produzent, er hat zusammengearbeitet mit Viktor, Perdula. Und danke, dass ihr gekommen seid, um diesen Film hier zu zeigen. Und vielleicht, BOŠTJAN, maybe you wanna say something to the audience.
I will be very short. Thank you that you came. Please, let's see the film.
Und bleiben Sie fürs Q&A nach dem Film bitte noch hier. Dankeschön. First of all, thank you for the movie, it's very impressive. It seems to be a lot of work also that you've done.
Yep.
How many years? Maybe let's start with that. How many decades?
So I don't know what happened before BOŠTJAN contacted me, but from the point on he did, the first part went quite fast. We were filming, I think it was 19 shooting days, and there's a lot crew members are here. I see Christian, the DP. I'm blinded by the light. Is it Matthias back there? No, it's not. I see Nicola and Markus, who worked on the color grading.
Vicky and Max. Vicky, Max.
Yeah. Back there. And there is a lot of the German voiceover artists here in the room. So thanks for the collaboration. It's always a team effort to make a movie. Absolutely. But yeah, so the shooting took some time in a few blocks with The Hague and with going to Sarajevo and the road trip back to Holmec, also filming it at ORF in Klagenfurt. But I think the longer period was actually the editing, to glue together the elements of the story.
Okay, and maybe to start at the beginning, we know from your biography that you were a war reporter also. Although when this fight in Holmec started, you were, I think, about 20, more or less. And so my question would be, where were you when this happened? And what was your perception of it, and did this eventually lead also maybe to this movie?
Yeah, so I was 19. I was as well in the Yugoslav National Army. I escaped maybe a week before the event, before the Slovenia proclaimed independence. I went to climb for a couple of days, and then I joined the Slovenian Territorial Defense. And I was actually very near to Holmec, so we saw the helicopters flying over our heads with federal policemen. And in that moment, out of the 30 members of my unit, 27 went to flee home. Those were 40, 45 years old men, so we were three ready to stay and fight. So it was as well for me very hard night, that night which is described here. And then the next morning we were listening to the fighting all around us, and we were listening to the radio. It seemed that everything is collapsing for the Slovenian side, but then the news came around 11:30. We won at Holmec. So, wow, we were all excited, and then it started to go very good for us, for Slovenian side. But that we won at Holmec was the message which was very important to, I think, everyone in on the Slovenian side, and that was my first connection to the event. And then later I became a war reporter. I saw many much more horrible stories than this one. But when that scandal broke out for me as a journalist and then filmmaker, it was just not possible to understand why the state or my colleagues or anyone in Slovenia tells the story as it should be told, so that you go to the opponent side, to the opposite side, and you ask the questions, you find the witnesses, and no one did that in Slovenia. So when we started to make this film, the story was not over, and even now some people are saying that was a war crime. So if you think about the moment in time where we are living now, which we are living now, the truth is maybe even more important, not maybe, it's much more important than it was 30-something years ago when that happened. Because now we have many other wars which are, wow, much bigger.
So was there some kind of, although you call it also the shades of truth, so I mean that means that there's no single truth, but still you felt like some part was missing, and that's why you had to go after it, right?
Yes, from our side. So no one talked with witnesses. No one went to Bosnia to find Hussein, who is the key witness, and then the Slovenian soldier who was a cook. No one did that, and I think that was important for my peace of mind and for peace of mind of those who were involved, I think, as well.
And how was the process to find the characters, and how did you manage to put them, the former enemies, together on a table to talk with each other? Maybe it was also some kind of effort you did on a interpersonal level.
So to find them was not too hard in these days of social media. So you go to Facebook or to wherever and you find them, and then the second part starts, which is you need to talk with them, to convince them to talk with you. So I traveled to Sarajevo to speak with Hussein first, who was a commander, and Mirsad is his post-traumatic stress syndrome is very hard, and he didn't want to talk about it at first. But then when I explained my story, that I was in the GNA as well, then it would become very, very simple suddenly. And that's, I think, was the reason that he came. And he faced that story by himself.
And did you ever consider to put yourself also in the movie?
I am in the movie.
Sorry, yeah. But I mean, in a more personal sense.
I think it doesn't go any more personal than it is, at least not for me.
Okay. And so, about the whole Den Haag tribunal, because it was not actually then a case there, right? It was talked about, Milosevic talked about, and tried to put some blame on it, but then in the end, so why did you still want to put it in the movie? Was it the general question which we hear a lot about, what's fairness, what's the truth,
the general problem of the Milosevic's defense was how he was twisting the truth in similar ways that it's happening now. So if you make a crime, genocide in Srebrenica, where 8,000 Bosnian men were executed, not killed in the battle, but executed by firing squads of Serbian military. He was trying to say that it's in a way or somehow equal to the event here. So that's why it was very, very painful for me and probably for everyone from Bosnia. And that's the case now it will be at United Nations. Only now they will say if United Nations will proclaim that Srebrenica was genocide. So it's still very, very important, especially because what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening with Russia, all these battles are still there.
By the way, if you have questions, you can raise your hand and speak out loud. I would repeat them for our cameras. So yeah, feel free to participate in this.
There's a hand.
There is a hand already? Ah, yeah.
There you go.
English, German.
English, please. If it's for me, English, please.
No, it's concerning a scene. Ja, also die Szene, wo die 4 Leute da sozusagen die weiße Flagge hissen und wo nichts passiert ist, anscheinend, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe. Also ich bin noch ein bisschen verwirrt. Die wurden aber schon geschossen, extrem, und wären sie nicht weggesprungen, wären sie getroffen worden, oder? Oder habe ich das falsch verstanden?
Yeah, so the question is about the first scene. Were they being shot at in the end? The people who raised their hand and the flag, or not? He's confused.
That's all the film is about it. No, they were not shot at it. Nothing happened to them. Because that was quite a fairly big battle. There was 200 something people on the Slovenian side and 100 maybe on the Yugoslav side. So the area was big. So someone was shooting somewhere, and nothing happened to these 5 men which are on the footage.
But to add to that, it's literally the misconception which is the story with this specific footage, because of the angle. The Austrian ORF camera guy filmed the scenery, and the sound that comes in from, you hear the shooting and then they react on the sound because somewhere they're shooting, and so they drop themselves, but then the fog goes over the image, so you can't see what happens after that. And so exactly from that point, from that footage on, those different stories emerged later on, told from different sides.
Okay, das war klar, aber das heißt, die wurden gar nicht geschossen, das war das, was ich...
Correct.
Are there maybe other questions about, because it is complex indeed, I think, also to understand that the different units inside the country, like on one side, and how they had some kind of misunderstandings, also the territorial ones and so on. Are there maybe more questions of understanding? I think it's maybe important to clear them if there are, although the half of the audience is from the movie itself, so if not, I continue. So I think one central sentence for me is also from Florence, when she says that there are different sides of truth, and it's important that it's being told, especially for the generation who did not live it. So how was the reaction of this generation when you screened the movie? Did you get some, and generally from the audience in former, like ex-Yugoslavia states, and then also internationally, of course, but first maybe from your country?
So the audience, the people who are part of the film from the Slovenian side, that was a huge trauma for them, because they were accused that they are war criminals, and always someone can come from the opposite side, so from father of the GNA soldier who was killed or something like that. That was their fear, one of the fears. The other fear was that Hague tribunal will somehow come to them and take them to the Hague. So when we screened the film for the first time in Slovenia, wow, it was very emotional. A few of them were crying, the others were happy. As said, because the story was never told in Slovenia in that way. I don't think, or I know that the story will not be so important for the rest of Yugoslavia, because as said in the film, this was first incident or first bigger battle on the territory of ex-Yugoslavia. Then the crimes which started in Croatia, Bosnia, and then later in Kosovo were, wow, much bigger. So that's very important story for us, and maybe for the truth. But then the crimes on the so were much bigger in other countries of ex-Yugoslavia.
Maybe could you tell us a bit more about the filmmaking and your decisions how to tell this story, because you also put some kind almost reenactments. We see the ambulance, we see also to a certain point the audio is very interesting because it reflects a bit also these traumas of the people. So how did you work on that, and maybe also within your crew? Maybe Viktor, you also want to add something to that?
The most important part of this story is basically cinema verite part, when the people are meeting each other. We couldn't script that part. I didn't know how Hussein will react on, so Bosnian guy will react on the Slovenian guy, Slovenian policeman. I didn't know that. I didn't know if the nurse is the nurse who really took the wounded Mirsad in her car, because no one precisely remembered, as it's seen in the scene when they are talking among themselves, the ambulance drivers and nurses. So all that, but that's basic. That's the fundament of the film, I think, the basics. Without those scenes, the film would be very boring. Would be just narration of the events. So all the rest, then, when this fitted together, was not very easy, but much easier to do, and a lot of it was done in post-production, and there all crew came together. I think Viktor was there, Max and Vicky were there, Christian was helpful already before with the cameras. So then, the film was made in the post-production in a big part.
Yeah, and I want to add on that. I still feel it was the first time we screened the German version now, where Dani was a big part in putting everything together with the voice actors, and also going back to question of translation, actually. So we can talk afterwards what you guys think, but the interesting part is really that in this process, at least we felt, again, telling the story for a second or third time, to find more details within some of the Slovenian bits and pieces. But overall, yeah, during filming there were a lot of questions. There were more questions raised, at least on my end, and I guess Christian as well, at some scenes. We didn't understand the language. We were just there filming and reacting and trying to interpret body language. It was a very interesting process also doing that. Sometimes a little bit chaotic, sometimes pretty much straightforward. But at the end of the day, we also filmed during Corona. So going to the ICC, to The Hague, was very interesting from the get-go. But then adding the lockdown scenarios in an institution like the ICC, getting permits there, getting access there with the cameras and everything was quite interesting. And for me, the journey actually started with the question on the footage, which is very interesting because BOŠTJAN knew through research there is a copy of the footage somewhere in the Slovenian archives of the television there, but it didn't provide the footage. They said, well, you can't have it, it belongs to ORF. So guess what happens with old tapes in ORF if you ask for it? Obviously they're gone. So everything from Landesstudio Kärnten, at some point they cleaned out their basement and shipped it back to Vienna. if even, and then it was dumped. So the only bit which was actually available within the ORF archives, which we did good research on with Martina Steiner, who is part of the film, were just the short clips used in all those 10-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary, 30-year anniversary films made. Also not with the original sound, so you just could hear some shooting, but it was not clear. Like, this footage basically already was manipulated. So we tried to get our hands on the raw footage of that sequence, and then after some phone calls and talks to people at ORF through the historic ORF archive, I've actually found out that there is an agreement between all the European television networks, the public broadcasters, in regards to exchange of archive footage. So we got a guy at ORF to officially request the footage from RTV Slovenia, which they didn't expect, obviously. So they had to send it to ORF, and then we could get it from them, and then we could put it together. Because we already, like Max back there said, we had a lot of questions, or at least I had a lot of questions. I also remembered some things from when I grew up at the time, seeing it in television and all that happening, also with the Austrian army side and everything. But at the end of the day, in the beginning of the process, there were more questions coming up than answers. And I still feel after seeing it today, there are a lot of answers there now, which is good. Also after the screening we had last week in Ljubljana with the former president Milan Kučan attending. But it's still interesting to talk about it. And as you asked about international reception and about younger audience, we went to a few film festivals with the film, got very interesting feedback, but not specifically.
Also some awards, no?
Yeah, there was like Cinematography Award in small festival in Toronto, and then Docs Without Borders, US festival, we won Best Documentary, and at the same time, a little bit later, we won a Best Documentary Award in Moscow. So it's already very interesting that US, Russia...
and the lady wrote the indictment for Mr. Putin.
Yeah, Betty, the one, she put out the arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. Like, while we were in editing of the movie. So reality catches up with a 30-plus-year-old story, which is another layer. And the reaction internationally was, okay, we don't have any idea about the history of Yugoslavia, and we don't have any idea about this specific battle. But on a wider scale, on the emotion, on the topics of trauma, on the topics of manipulation of media, and topics of war crimes, this is like a wider area, and it's people react to that and start asking questions.
And how was the feedback in the end of all the people who participated? Because we hear several times that some of them say, okay, actually I did not want to talk, but also I feel I have to let go. Talking could be seen as a letting go, and the whole movie even more maybe. So how did they feel then in the end about this process and about the story after having done this movie?
I think whoever agreed to be in the film, they are happy, or they were happy. Many didn't. But those who didn't, those were from Slovenian side, and mainly because the state didn't give them support when they were accused to be war criminals. So as I said, this film is the first time that someone seriously took the matter and talked about it. So they are very, very disappointed. And Lazio, for example, so the one with the glasses and who was taking video, the policeman who was taking video, his life was shattered after 2 days of the battle. So it was very traumatic. I shall not talk more about that, but it was very traumatic for him and for some others as well. So yeah, many didn't want to talk.
But at the end, when they came to see the movie, like Lazzi, Ottokar, Zlatko, and so on, I think there were 3 screenings which I attended where they were there. On the first one, they were really very emotional, like BOŠTJAN said before. And the second one, they were like, it's a great movie, and you did change so much from the first screening, and then on the third one, which was just a few weeks ago, they were like, every time we see it, you changed it, you made the film better. We didn't change a thing. It's their reception, and you really can see that it's also some kind of therapy. It seems to be a process.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The movie starts with the sentence, "We have a moral problem," and so on. Huh?
This part is maybe not very understandable for most of you, because it's the problem of Slovenian society, which all in Slovenia or in ex-Yugoslavia understand very well, because we transformed from one political system from socialism to capitalism. He's talking about his ode to the socialist Yugoslavia. And me, when I went to the army, to the GNA, Yugoslav National Army, or People's Army, I swear oath to Tito and to socialism. And then suddenly it was something else. And for many people who believed in the former idea, that was very, very hard. Like for the guy Laci.
Any questions from your side? Yes, please.
Yes, I mean, from very far away, looking to the Jugoslavian wars, we were wondering, because it was so antagonistic to what happens in Europe. Europe was unifying and getting less nationalism and getting the European Union, and at the same time we look to Yugoslavia, and there's this really completely outdated idea of national states from the 19th century producing this war. So I don't know, it was some like, in a way, completely crazy movement into 19th century against all European tendencies to overcome this. And I don't know, and then this wars exploded. See from Vienna, I mean, in Vienna you always saw the refugees and the people come here, and all the men who didn't want to shoot, they flew here, and we had to do very much with deserters and people not wanting to get involved in this stupid thing. So it's crazy to see that apparently no one of them regrets to have fought with arms for 19th century idea and in the end of the 20th century. They still think there have been heroes, and it made sense to do these wars and
This is hard for me to summarize, but basically we have a comment here and a critique.
If I can, shortly, because I was there, I was 19 years old, I was forced to shoot or forced to be in the army. It was not my free choice. But I want to say something else, which maybe it will be easier to understand. Firstly, that story is still going on. That story didn't end. It's similarly connected, like the First World War is connected to the Second World War. Those who understand history a little bit more. So the breakup of Yugoslavia and breakup of Soviet Union are still happening. Those wars in Ukraine and the problems which are in Kosovo and in Bosnia today are end of the same story, or the second part of the same story. Maybe it's not the end yet. So we will see what's going to happen next. And that's only superficially the problem of the 19th century. No, it's a problem of today, because those problems were not solved. If you don't solve the problem, then it will come back sooner or later, like everywhere. And that's what is happening now. And that's why that moment in time is so dangerous, because if we will not face it, it can explode either straight away, either in few months, in few years, but it must be solved, and it will be. And only by force. There is no other way. Like there was no way to stop the Second World War after 1st of September 1939.
But what do you mean there should be more war in Yugoslavia?
I'm saying the war is not over. now it will start the second part. Maybe it will be, I hope it will not be so hard as it was with the first one, but because it is connected to Russia and Ukraine, it will be solved at the same moment. When war stops in Ukraine and Russia, the war in Kosovo and in Bosnia will be stopped as well.
I still don't understand why. I mean, it was not an answer to my question.
Sorry, I don't know if I know any better, but again, comparison with First World War and the Second World War. The Second World War was just the extension of the First World War. That's the theory of many historians. I'm just repeating the other people's stories. But here is the same phenomenon. As Putin is saying all the time, he's referring that the biggest catastrophe of 20th century is the downfall of the Soviet Union. And he's fighting to change that. And that's why I'm saying that's the same story from 91. And if the world doesn't force those who are involved to finish it, if the world is satisfied with the temporary solutions, then the problems come back again. And that is what is happening now.
We have now these national states on the Balkans, and we have all these stupid ideas of nationalism realizing for 35 years, and now they come back to...
That's... I apologize, and I'm sorry that you think it's stupid. It's stupid for you, but it's not stupid for someone there. I spent as a war reporter 2 years on the front lines in Kosovo. I was there where people were killed in hundreds, and that's 20-something years ago. And the people who were killing are now 40, 50 years old. And if that person is your neighbor, sorry, it's not stupid, it's there.
But they should not have started killing each other. I mean,
Obviously they shouldn't have.
They shouldn't have, but why Hitler appeared? Why Nazism appeared? It's the same question, because we are human beings. We are Homo sapiens, unfortunately.
No, I think we are not just killing each other if there's nobody giving money to buy weapons and to...
Of course, it's a wider problem. You're making exactly the point. Yeah? It's a wider problem, but on another level.
My question is very simple. If people regret to have started this war, I mean, we know that...
Okay, maybe we finish with this question, and maybe the rest we can discuss then at the bar, but yeah.
Good idea.
Because just for this man, nobody of them regrets to have fought for a stupid idea. They don't see it stupid now, they think still it was a good idea.
Yeah, maybe we should continue really then afterwards, because also we have limited time, but is there anything else? Yes?
How was the feedback of the film outside Slovenia? Like you showed this film, let's say in Bosnia, in Serbia.
The rest of...
the film was not shown yet in Bosnia. It was to Bosnian ambassador and to some other people. They liked it. It was to Bosnian members of the participants. They liked it as well. So we are looking forward to go to Sarajevo in September. I think, or I know that they will like it, but I'm quite sure they will not like it in Serbia, because all of what I said before.
But you will show it?
We will try to show it. Every film, now, whatever happens between Serbia and Croatia, or Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia, it has two sides. Each coin has two sides. So if you make a film about Jasenovac, Jasenovac is Serbia, it's Croatian concentration camp. Ustaša were collaborators of Nazism. So if you make the story about that concentration camp, you have always two sides. Serbian side saying something, and then Croatian side saying something almost opposite. And that's exactly what happened. Or with Srebrenica genocide, so this notion will be in the United Nations this week, I think. Yeah, but so we will need to try to come to the end of the story, or it will go on into the next generation.
And I think another point I want to add is on an international level, the feedback we got so far was on the angle of journalism, on the angle of how truth is defined at the end of the day. It's more, I think, a meta level to discuss the matter. And also the question that's somewhere like an elephant in the room is 5 people were killed at that battle, 200 something were participating. It could have been much worse. So the question really is, Ottokar, so the Slovenian commander, and Hussein, the Yugoslavian Bosnian commander, when they meet to reflect what happens, it's at one level it's really about when he says, is there something we could have done better, or did we mess it up? 5 people died. Yes, it's all a big problem to have war in the first place. I completely agree. But the point is, it could have been much worse. That's also what Florence says. And then coming to the next generation again. So it kind of closes this loop in a way, at least for me.
Yeah, I forgot about this. So I wouldn't probably do this film. Again, I was a war reporter. I saw evil. None of them is evil. Those are good men. Because if the Hussein, Yugoslav army guy, would shoot his cannon into that building where the Slovenian police were, we saw them confused, watching how they shoot. No, he shot into the tree. If he would shoot into the people, 30 or something would be killed straight away. But he didn't.
Isn't that what he said, that he shoots one?
Yes.
Yeah,
precisely. Yeah, precisely. But it could be different. This was in many other places. So those were 2 good men facing each other.
So that's what you said. But also, I mean, he could not shoot because he had his orders. And if he would not have operate the gun and shoot at least somewhere, he would get shot, probably, because of defecting or the guy knowing the military structures. But point made is that it could have been much worse, and they tried their best to avoid 200 people dying in this instance.
Yes.
I think that's a good finishing word and sentence. And thank you very much for being brave and putting a controversial story to the screen. And hopefully there will be more attempts like this to bring the different angles of truth. As the cameraman said, was also very good. That it's what I filmed, but you have had 3 cameras here or more, and I think that's what we saw now in this movie.
Yeah, and I think can add on that specifically this is why we made the German version in the first place, to show it to schools like Oberstufen, to discuss the matter of manipulating or even just perspective at the end of the day. It's like here, 1, 2, 3 cameras. If someone's just doing a TikTok video of something, it's about context, and it's about the angle of a viewpoint or perspective and creating context. And this is what's happening a lot today in today's media. And I think it could be a starting point, at least in a small area, to start talking about this and using this as an example. Even 34 years ago, where we didn't have so much technology available to manipulate footage with deep fakes or whatever, to get a discussion going on especially that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also for your questions. Next screening, do we know already?
There was the commercial start.
He's switching roles. He's also board member of the ADA.
You mean our next screening or the screening of next screening of this film?
Sorry, I meant ADA
ADA
screening.
Very good question. 27th of May, thank you. So 27. Mai, nächstes ADA-Screening hier. Welcher Film? Wissen wir das?
Wissen wir noch nicht, aber wenn Sie Ihre E-Mail-Adresse vermerkt haben, dann bekommen Sie die Info in Kürze.
Oder folgen auf Facebook.
Genau.
Sowohl der ADA als auch unserem Film.
Dankeschön.
Es wird Screenings geben.
Super. Schönen Abend noch.
Danke fürs Kommen.